Beamy Max, just a regular guy in his late 20s. Work in IT for a decent-sized company. Not a social superstar. Never have been. I'm the quiet guy in the corner who just gets the job done. My code is clean, my solutions are efficient, and I don't cause drama. For years, this was enough. My old boss, a guy named Frank, was a simple man. He didn't care about office politics or how loudly you talked in meetings. His only metric was competence. If you could solve the problem, you were golden. We had a kind of unspoken understanding. He'd see me staying late to fix a critical bug, and the next morning there'd be a coffee on my desk, no words needed. This system worked perfectly. Our biggest client, a massive account worth millions, was managed by a guy named Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott was old school. He valued reliability over everything else. He knew that if he had a real problem, a company-ending problem, I was the one who would fix it. I remember this one time, maybe a year before everything changed. A new software rollout went catastrophically wrong. The entire client-facing platform for Mr. Scott's company went down. They were losing money every second. Panic in the office. People were literally running around. Emergency meetings were called every 30 minutes, with managers just shouting at each other. Lots of finger-pointing, lots of loud brainstorming that produced nothing. I just put on my headphones, tuned them all out, and dived into the server logs. For hours, I just sat there, tracing lines of code, looking for the one thing that everyone else missed. The office got quieter as people gave up and went home, defeated. Around 2 a.m. I found it, a single misplaced character in a core configuration file, a tiny mistake that had brought the whole system to its knees. I fixed it, ran a dozen tests to be sure, and pushed the patch. The system came back online. Everything was stable. I wrote a short 2-sentence email to my team and Frank, explaining the issue and confirming the fix. Then I packed my bag and went home. The next morning, I came into that familiar coffee on my desk. Frank just walked by and gave me a quiet nod. That was his version of a parade. A few minutes later, an email popped up. It was from Mr. Scott himself. The subject line was just, "Thanks." The body of the email was one line. "Max, you're a lifesaver, again." That's all I ever needed. Respect for the work. That was my world. It was logical, it was fair, and it made sense. Then, Frank announced his retirement. We threw him a small party. He shook my hand and told me to keep up the good work. And then came the email from HR, announcing our new department head. Her name was Skylar. The email was full of corporate buzzwords. Dynamic, synergistic, paradigm-shifting leadership. I didn't think much of it. A new boss is a new boss. As long as the work gets done, it doesn't matter. I was so wrong. Skylar's first day, she called a mandatory team meeting. She walked in with a blindingly white smile and an energy that felt completely artificial. She launched into a long speech. It wasn't about our projects, our clients, or our technology. It was about reimagining the workplace. She talked about deconstructing the old patriarchal frameworks of communication. She said her goal was to create a psychologically safe space where every voice is heard and amplified. I just sat there, waiting for her to get to the point. What were our goals for the quarter? What was the status of the Scott account upgrade? But she never got there. She kept talking about unconscious bias and the need for active vocal participation. Then she started going around the room, asking everyone to introduce themselves and share their personal truth about the workplace. My colleague, Karina, went first. Karina was always more of a talker than a doer. She was an expert at sounding busy and important in meetings. She immediately latched onto Skylar's vocabulary. She talked for 5 minutes straight about how empowering it was to have a leader who values emotional labor, and how she felt seen. Skylar was beaming, nodding enthusiastically. "Yes, Karina, Thank you for sharing that. This is exactly the kind of open dialogue we need. Then it was my turn. I kept it simple. I'm Max. I'm a senior developer. I primarily handle the technical side of the Scott account. Nice to meet you. I thought that was fine. It was factual and professional. Skylar's smile tightened just a little. Okay, Max, but how do you feel about your role? Are you excited to contribute to our new team dynamic? I was caught off guard. I'm focused on doing a good job. The work is challenging, and I like that. She just stared at me for a few seconds. The room was silent. Right, she finally said, and moved on. But I could tell I'd already failed some kind of test. That meeting set the tone for everything that followed. The very next week, Skylar introduced mandatory morning check-ins. Every single day, we had to sit in a circle and share our emotional state and our intentions for collaborative success. It was a nightmare. It was an hour of wasted time every single day. Karina, of course, excelled at this. She would talk about feeling a little anxious about a deadline, but so grateful for the team's supportive energy. She'd praise Skylar for her transformative leadership that allowed her to be vulnerable. Skylar would eat it up. Thank you for that vulnerability, Karina. That's true strength. When it was my turn, I'd just say something like, I'm fine, planning to resolve 3 tickets today. Skylar started targeting me openly. Max, we need more than that. Your brevity can come across as dismissive. It's important that you share your feelings with the team. Your silence creates an unsafe environment for others who want to be open. I tried to explain that I'm just a quiet person, that I express myself through my work. She cut me off. That's a very outdated and, frankly, problematic viewpoint. It comes from a place of masculine emotional suppression. We're trying to build a healthier culture here. The rest of the team just stared at their laps. No one wanted to get in the line of fire. It just got worse from there. She started critiquing my emails. I've always written very direct, concise emails. She called me into her office and showed me one I sent to the team. Subject: Server patch complete. The patch is live. No issues found. She told me this email was aggressive and cold. She showed me an email from Karina on the same topic from a week before. Karina's email was 5 paragraphs long, filled with exclamation points, smiley faces, and apologies for the tiny disruption the server maintenance might have caused. Skylar told me, "See? This is how you communicate. It's warm, it's considerate. It shows you care about the team's feelings." I told her that my email conveyed the necessary information in 5 seconds, while Karina's took 5 minutes to read and said the same thing. Her face went cold. Your focus on pure efficiency is a symptom of toxic masculinity, Max. People are not machines. You need to start considering the emotional impact of your communication style. It was like living in a different reality. My entire career was built on being clear, efficient, and reliable. Now, all of those traits were being branded as toxic. The work started to suffer. With an hour wasted every morning and endless meetings about feelings and communication styles, things started falling behind. Deadlines were getting tight. Karina, who spent all her time talking about work, produced very little actual work. I found myself quietly picking up her slack, fixing her mistakes late at night just to keep the projects from derailing. I never said anything. I just did the work. That's what I always did. But Skylar only saw what happened in the meetings. She saw Karina talking, so she assumed Karina was working. She saw me being quiet, so she assumed I was not contributing. One day, there was a minor issue with Mr. Scott's account. A new feature was buggy. Karina was assigned to lead the fix. I saw her code. It was a mess. I knew it wouldn't work. In the team meeting, I tried to gently point out the potential flaws. I think there might be an issue with the database call in that new function. It could cause a memory leak under heavy load. Skylar immediately jumped in. Max, It is not constructive to criticize a teammate's work in a public forum. Karina is leading this, and we need to trust and empower her. Your comment feels like you're trying to undermine her authority." Karina looked hurt. "I really put a lot of thought into this, Max. I feel like you're not respecting my process." I just shut up. There was no point. I told myself, fine, let her do it her way. It's her project. Of course, 2 days later, the system crashed, under heavy load, just like I said it would. Mr. Scott was on the phone, and he was not happy. Skylar called an emergency meeting. Karina was in tears, saying she felt overwhelmed and unsupported. Skylar put an arm around her. "It's not your fault, Karina. The pressure was too high. We need to foster a more supportive environment." Then she looked at me. "Max, you have the most experience with this system. Why didn't you foresee this and offer more proactive support to Karina?" I was stunned. "I did. I warned you about the memory leak in the meeting 2 days ago." Skylar shook her head. "No, you made a critical comment. You didn't offer a collaborative solution. There's a big difference. You saw a teammate struggling and chose to let her fail to prove a point. That's not how we do things here." I felt a rage building inside me, something I hadn't felt in years, but I just pushed it down. I said nothing. I just said, "I'll fix it." I stayed up all night, again, rewriting Karina's code from scratch. I fixed the bug, optimized the feature, and deployed it. The next morning, the system was running perfectly. I sent a simple status update. "The bug on the Scott account is resolved." A few weeks later, Skylar called me into her office for a one-on-one performance review. I sat down across from her desk. She had a serious expression on her face. She started by telling me that my technical skills are adequate. Then came the but. "But your soft skills are severely lacking. You are perceived as unapproachable, negative, and not a team player. You consistently fail to contribute to our team culture." She pulled out a list. "You don't participate actively in morning check-ins. You send blunt emails. You publicly critique your colleagues instead of offering support. You seem to think that just doing your technical tasks is enough, but it's not." I tried to defend myself. "Skylar, my performance has always been measured by the quality of my work. Mr. Scott has never had a single complaint about my technical solutions. I've closed more critical tickets than anyone else on the team." She held up a hand to stop me. "You keep bringing up Mr. Scott. That relationship is a relic of the old boys club culture we are trying to move past. It's not healthy for one client to be so dependent on one person. It's a systemic risk." She leaned forward, her voice becoming soft and condescending, like she was explaining something to a child. "Max, I know change can be hard, especially for men who are used to a system that rewards stoicism and lone wolf behavior. But the world is changing. The workplace is changing. To succeed here, you need to learn to be more open, more vulnerable, more collaborative. You need to do the emotional work, not just the technical work." I just sat there, listening to this complete nonsense. She was describing a world that had nothing to do with building software and solving problems. It was a world of performance art, where saying the right words was more important than getting the right results. I realized in that moment that I could not win. There was no logical argument that could break through her ideology. My competence, my greatest asset, was now my biggest liability in her eyes. I just nodded. "I understand. I'll try to do better." It was a lie, but it was the only way to end the conversation. I walked out of her office feeling completely drained. I went back to my desk and looked at the project board. Karina had been assigned as the project lead for the next major phase of the Scott account upgrade. I was listed under her as technical support. I knew right then that this was going to end in a disaster, and I knew that when it did, she would find a way to make it my fault. For the next month or so, I tried to play their game. In the morning meetings, I would make up some fake feeling. I'm feeling optimistic about our progress today. I started adding useless pleasantries to my emails. Hi team, hope you're having a great day. Just wanted to share a quick update. It felt disgusting. Every word was a betrayal of who I was. Skylar seemed pleased. She even gave me a patronizing smile one morning and said, "I'm glad to see you're finally opening up, Max. Great progress." But the work was a slow-motion train wreck. Karina was in charge, but she had no idea what she was doing. She would design features that were technically impossible. She would promise deadlines to Mr. Scott that were completely unrealistic. I would try to raise these issues, but I'd do it in the approved Skylar way. "That's a really creative idea, Karina. I'm just wondering if we might face some challenges with the database latency. Perhaps we could brainstorm some alternative approaches?" But it didn't matter. Skylar would always back Karina. I love that Karina is thinking outside the box. Let's not shut down innovation with negativity, Max. Let's have a can-do attitude. I was trapped. I was supposed to be the technical support, but I wasn't allowed to give any actual technical advice if it contradicted the project lead. I was just supposed to shut up and make Karina's bad ideas work, which was often impossible. And then came the big one, the final straw. The company was trying to land a huge new contract extension with Mr. Scott. It was the biggest deal in our department's history. The entire thing depended on a successful presentation of the new system upgrade we'd been working on. A week before the final presentation to Mr. Scott and his board, it became clear that the core feature, the one designed by Karina, was fundamentally broken. It was slow, it was buggy, and it crashed under any significant load. Panic set in. This time it was real. Losing this contract would be devastating. Skylar's cheerful corporate facade finally started to crack. She called an emergency meeting, and for the first time she didn't talk about feelings. She just looked at the team and said, "This has to be fixed, now." Karina burst into tears, saying the pressure was too much. Everyone looked at me. The room went silent. Skylar looked at me, her eyes pleading. The mask was off. She was scared. "Max," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "can you fix it?" I just looked at her. I thought about everything that had happened over the past few months, the public shaming, the lectures, the condescension. I should have said no. I should have said, "This is the collaborative environment you wanted. Collaborate your way out of it." But my work ethic, the very thing she called toxic, wouldn't let me. Mr. Scott was my client. I had a responsibility to him. I just nodded. "I'll do it." I didn't go home for 3 days. I slept on a couch in the break room for a couple of hours each night. I threw out everything Karina had built. It was unsalvageable. I started from scratch, using the original, stable architecture. I worked like I hadn't worked in years. I coded, I tested, I debugged, I drank gallons of coffee. The rest of the team left me alone. They knew they'd just be in the way. On the morning of the presentation, with about an hour to spare, I finished. The system was not just fixed, it was better than ever. It was faster, more stable, and more efficient than the original design. I ran the final diagnostics. Everything was green. Perfect. I sent a one-line email to Skylar. "It's ready." Then I went to the men's room, splashed some water on my face, and put on a fresh shirt I'd brought with me. I walked into the big boardroom just as the meeting was starting. Mr. Scott was there with his executive team. My company's upper management was there. And Skylar was standing at the front of the room, ready to present. I took a seat in the back, expecting to just be a fly on the wall in case any technical questions came up. Skylar started her presentation. She was back to her old self, confident, smiling, full of buzzwords. She talked about the incredible journey of collaborative innovation that led to this new system. Then, she put up a slide with a picture of the team. "I want to give a special thank you to the leadership on this project," she said, her voice full of fake sincerity. Karina, in particular, showed extraordinary vision and resilience. Her leadership was the driving force that got us through the challenges and delivered this incredible product. I just stared. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She continued, "Karina worked tirelessly day and night to bring her innovative design to life. She is a true role model for leadership in this company." She then went on to demo the system. My system, the one I had just spent 72 hours of my life building from nothing. She clicked through the features flawlessly. Everything worked perfectly. Mr. Scott and his team were visibly impressed. My own managers were beaming. At the end of the presentation, the room broke into applause. Mr. Scott stood up and shook Skylar's hand. "Incredible work. Truly impressive." Skylar just smiled and said, "It was a total team effort, but the credit really belongs to Karina's brilliant leadership." Karina, sitting near the front, was blushing and looking humble. No one looked at me. No one mentioned my name. It was as if I didn't exist. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I felt nothing. Just a profound, hollow emptiness. In that moment, watching them all celebrate the work I had done while completely erasing me from the narrative, something inside me just switched off. I stood up quietly and walked out of the room. No one noticed. I went back to my desk. I didn't smash my keyboard. I didn't shout. I just sat down, opened a browser, and went to the website of a competitor who had been trying to recruit me for the past year. I found the email from their headhunter. I wrote a simple reply. "Regarding your previous offer, is it still on the table? I'm interested." Then I opened a new document, and I started typing my resignation letter. I hit send on the email to the competitor. A feeling of calm washed over me. It wasn't happiness, not yet. It was just quiet. The inner turmoil had stopped. My resignation letter was short and professional. It didn't mention Skylar or Karina or the presentation. It just stated my intention to leave, effective in 2 weeks, as per my contract. I attached it to an email, addressed it to Skylar and HR, and clicked send without a second's hesitation. For the rest of the day, I worked methodically. I started documenting everything, every system I had built, every custom script I had written. I laid out the architecture of Mr. Scott's entire platform with detailed notes and warnings about potential pitfalls. I knew no one would be able to understand it, least of all Karina, but I did it anyway. It was professional. It was the right thing to do. Skylar didn't come to my desk. She didn't call me into her office. She just sent a one-word reply to my resignation, acknowledged. It was clear she was happy to see me go. I was the rock in her shoe, the one piece that didn't fit into her perfect collaborative puzzle. The next morning, she made the announcement at the daily check-in. Her voice was full of artificial brightness. "Team, I have some news. Max has decided to pursue other opportunities and will be leaving us in 2 weeks. We wish him all the best in his future endeavors." She then immediately pivoted. "This is a wonderful opportunity for us to grow. It opens the door for others to step up into leadership roles. Karina will be officially taking full ownership of the Scott account. I have the utmost confidence in her ability to lead it with the collaborative spirit our team values." Everyone mumbled some polite good lucks in my direction. They all knew what was really happening, but no one was going to say it. They had their own jobs to protect. Karina looked both thrilled and terrified, the lead on the company's biggest account. It was what she always wanted. The 2 weeks that followed were surreal. It was like watching a ghost of myself in the office. I was there, but I wasn't. Skylar and the others treated me with a kind of polite indifference. Karina tried to schedule a handover meeting. She came to my desk with a notebook, full of cheerful confidence. "Okay, Max, so, just need you to walk me through the main stuff for the Scott account." I asked her what she wanted to know specifically. She didn't have an answer. Just everything? Like, what are the important files? It was like a master chef trying to teach quantum physics to a toddler. She didn't even have the vocabulary to ask the right questions. I spent an hour showing her the server architecture diagrams I had prepared. Her eyes just glazed over. She was nodding and smiling, but she wasn't understanding a single word. She was more interested in things like, "What's Mr. Scott's assistant's name again? I want to send her a welcome basket." I gave her the documentation. It was over 200 pages long. I told her, "Everything you need is in here. Read it. Memorize it. If you deviate from it, the system will break." She just laughed. "Wow, that's a lot. I'm sure I'll figure it out. I'm more of a hands-on, people-person learner anyway." I knew then, with absolute certainty, that they were doomed. The morning meetings became even more unhinged. With me, the negative energy, on my way out, Skylar doubled down on her methods. They spent one entire hour-long meeting discussing what color the new inspirational posters for the office should be. I just sat in the back, silent, counting down the hours. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk. It didn't take long. I never kept much personal stuff at work. I left the stack of documentation in the center of the desk, along with my security badge and my laptop. A few people came by to shake my hand quietly, whispering things like, "Good luck, you're doing the right thing." Skylar did a final, performative goodbye in front of the team. "We'll miss you, Max. Don't be a stranger," she said with a big fake smile. I just nodded and said, "Take care." I walked out of that office and never looked back. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I didn't even realize I had been carrying. I had a week off before starting my new job. The competitor had been thrilled to hear from me. They didn't just match my old salary, they beat it by a significant margin. During the interview, their CTO, a guy who was a legendary programmer, spent an hour just talking code with me. He didn't ask me how I felt. He didn't ask me about my communication style. He asked me how I would solve a complex scaling problem. It felt like coming home. I spent my week off decompressing. I went hiking. I read books. I didn't think about work at all. Then, on the Friday of that week, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. "Hello? Max? It's Scott. Mr. Scott." I was surprised. "Mr. Scott. Hello. How are you?" "I'm confused, Max. That's what I am," he said. His voice was all business. "I've been trying to reach you for 2 days. They keep forwarding me to some woman named Karina." I took a breath. "I'm no longer with the company, Mr. Scott. Last Friday was my last day." There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear him processing the information. "They let you go?" he finally asked, a note of disbelief in his voice. "I resigned," I corrected him. Another pause. "Why?" I thought about how to answer that. I could have told him everything, but that wasn't my style. "It was just time for a change in direction," I said neutrally. He didn't buy it. "Cut the corporate talk, Max. I've worked with you for a decade. You're the most no-nonsense guy I know. What happened?" So I told him. I didn't tell him with anger or emotion. I just stated the facts. I told him about the new manager, about the focus on feelings over facts. And I told him about the final presentation and how the credit for my 72-hour rescue mission was given to someone else. I just laid it all out, plain and simple. When I was done, there was another long silence. "That woman," he said, and his voice was now ice cold. "The one who took the credit. Was her name Karina?" "Yes," I said. "And the new manager is Skylar?" "Yes." "Okay," he said. The word was clipped, final. "Thank you for telling me, Max. I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate the 10 years of excellent work you did for me. Let me make a phone call. I'll be in touch." He hung up. I didn't know what he was going to do, but I knew it wouldn't be quiet. I started my new job the following Monday. The office was calm. People were focused. It was a place for adults who wanted to do good work. It was wonderful. Around noon, I got an email from the competitor's headhunter who had hired me. "Can you come to the CTO's office? We have a potential new client who specifically asked to speak with you." I walked into the CTO's office. He was on a video call on the big screen. The face on the screen was Mr. Scott. He saw me, and a huge grin broke out on his face. "There he is. Max, my friend, good to see you." My new CTO looked at me, then at the screen. "You two know each other?" Mr. Scott chuckled. "Know him? This man has single-handedly saved my company from collapsing at least 3 times. I was just telling your boss here that I've decided to move my business, all of it." He looked me right in the eye through the camera. "My contract had a key person clause tied to you, Max. I guess my lawyers were smarter than I thought. When you left, the contract was breached. I've officially terminated my agreement with your old company this morning." I was speechless. I had no idea about any clause like that. Mr. Scott continued. "I told them exactly why. I told them that I'm in the business of results, not feelings, and that my business is going wherever Max goes. So, the question is, does your new company want to take on a very large, very loyal new client?" My new CTO was looking at me with a mix of shock and amusement. He smiled. "Well, if he's good enough for you, Mr. Scott, he's good enough for us. We would be honored to have your business." The rest of the day was a blur of meetings. Lawyers, accountants, project managers. By the end of the day, the deal was in motion. One of the biggest client transfers in the industry. Later that week, I got a text from an old colleague. It was a link to a news article in a local business journal. The headline was about my old company's stock taking a massive hit after the unexpected loss of their largest client. The article quoted an anonymous inside source who described the management of the department as a toxic environment where appearances were valued more than competence. My friend added a message below the link. It was chaos here. When Mr. Scott pulled the contract, the CEO came down to our floor personally. He walked into Skylar's office, and they had a shouting match for 20 minutes. We could hear everything. "She was trying to blame me," my friend's text continued. "She was saying I wasn't a team player, that I was a disruptive element. The CEO wasn't having it. He told her he didn't care about buzzwords. He cared about the millions of dollars she just lost. They fired her on the spot. Security walked her out. She was crying. She had to carry her stuff out in a box." I read the message and felt a strange sense of closure. It wasn't about revenge. It was about balance. The world had been turned upside down, and now it was righting itself. The final text from my friend read, "Karina tried to take over the system after you left. She crashed the staging server within an hour. They reassigned her to writing the company newsletter. LOL." I put my phone down. I looked around my new office. It was quiet. The only sound was the clicking of keyboards, the sound of people working, solving problems, building things. My new boss walked by and put a coffee on my desk. He just smiled and gave me a quiet nod. No words needed. I took a sip. It was good coffee, and for the first time in a very long time, I smiled. A real smile. The work was all that mattered. It always had been.